Welcome back to the wild ride that is the life of Jacob. For the last few weeks, we've been following along with Jacob while he's been staying with his uncle Laban. But after years of increasing tensions and conflict between Laban and Jacob, Jacob finally flees from his uncle's lands, taking his wives and his kids and all that's rightfully his. But now Jacob has found himself in another pickle, because as he's heading back to the land of his family, he begins to realize that the decisions of his past are about to come back and bite him. If you remember all the way back to the beginning of the series, Jacob had a twin brother, and his relationship with his twin brother was about as dysfunctional as everything else in Jacob's life. Jacob had taken advantage of his brother in a moment of weakness and swindled him out of his birthright. And then Jacob had deceived his own father and stole the blessing that was meant for his brother Esau. And part of the whole idea of fleeing to stay with his uncle Laban was that Jacob was fleeing from his brother who had promised to kill Jacob as soon as their father died. And now that Jacob has decided to return home, he's confronted with the consequences of his decisions. If he returns home, he's going to have to confront his brother, who, last we heard, wanted to kill him. So what's Jacob going to do? Well, he's going to do what any sibling does to smooth things over with their angry brother. He's going to placate him with gifts and flattering words. Jacob sends an envoy ahead of him to inform Esau of his upcoming arrival, but it turns out that Esau was already on the way to meet Jacob. But he's not traveling alone, he's traveling with 400 of his men. In Jacob's mind, this can only mean one thing: Esau is setting out to destroy him. So Jacob splits up his people and livestock so that if they get attacked, not all of them will perish, and he begins to send wave after wave of gifts to his brother, each wave informing Esau that Jacob is coming soon. What happens next is the part that we want to focus on today. After Jacob has sent everyone else either ahead of him or onto a place where they might be safe, he finds himself alone. And while he's by himself, a mysterious man shows up and they begin to wrestle. Because what else do you do with a mysterious man who shows up out of nowhere? This is how Genesis describes it. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower Jacob, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it's daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And the man asked, "What's your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." This seems like such a strange story until we consider everything that's happened thus far in Jacob's life. From the very beginning, God had promised to bless Jacob and use him to continue the promise that God had made to his grandfather. But Jacob continuously took things into his own hands and tried to force every situation to submit to his own will, sometimes by using trickery and manipulation. And because of this, he had found himself in a challenging situation. Instead of trusting in God's promises and protection, Jacob tried to force situations into submission. Here's the part to remember. Even though Jacob had been doing his own thing, God had been continually trying to show him that he was going to take care of Jacob. God came to Jacob in a dream. God warned Jacob of Laban and the need to leave the situation he was in. Even at the start of this story, in chapter 32, verse 1, we see that the angels of God have been following along with Jacob. This whole story has been about Jacob trying to wrestle things into submission, while God has just been showing Jacob that all he needs to do is trust in God. So here, God meets Jacob and allows Jacob to wrestle with him. And the way Genesis records it shows us that God was using this moment to teach Jacob an important lesson. God allowed him to give it his best shot, and it was clear Jacob was determined. But ultimately, all it took while wrestling was a little touch to the hip for God to show who was really in control. There is no wrestling God into submission. God is the one in control, not us. And when Jacob demands that God bless him, this is actually a show of Jacob's submission to God. Blessings always come from the more powerful to the less. And when Jacob demands the blessing, he's saying, I see you're the one in control, the powerful one, and I need you to bless me. This is a huge turning point. Jacob is realizing that it's not about forcing God to submit to how you want things to happen. It's about embracing what God is trying to do. Seeing this, Jacob just wants God's blessing. He realizes how he's not in control, and he asks God just to bless him. And in this moment, God does something of tremendous importance. He gives Jacob a new name, Israel. And with this new name, Jacob is supposed to see that the old Jacob, the one who tried to force his will on every situation and only caused problem after problem, is now a new man. God is giving Jacob a chance to be a new man with a new name who is embracing God's blessing in God's way. And in this, we see an important parallel. When we try to wrestle our circumstances and submit them to our will, it tends to cause problems. But when we submit to God and embrace how He is leading and guiding us, we're able to see what it is that God is trying to do in our lives. This is a moment where Jacob realizes how God has never given up on him, and he begins to embrace a trusting relationship with God. We'll see you next week.